What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Command and Console. My name is Jason. Today I'm going to talk about just an introduction to the channel and my current video game collections as they stand. So without further ado, let's get into my first collection as it stands right now, and that's my PlayStation 2 collection. Fresh off the bat, I've just got into PS2 collecting. I remember having a PS2 back in the day, so I thought I'm going to go out my way, pick up a PS2 and start building a collection that is created by what I had growing up. So this is the PS2 that I have. It's a bit of an oddity, I will say. It is the PS2 Slim, but this is got a very weird mods. This is the cheapest one I could find on eBay with a bundle of games. This has got a weird mod that I actually think is pretty cool, if it's a bit unnecessary. It does open like this, but I found using this flip top does not work that well because you can't really clip it back into place. So it's just better to do that, just to use the main top. It's weird, but it does the job. It plays games fine. It came with 2 memory cards. I've sold one. I only needed one. So it came with 2 memory cards, 2 controllers. One controller works fine. The other one just doesn't operate at all, which is one of these things when you buy a kind of untested job lots on eBay. You're going to get some stuff that just doesn't perfectly work, but this works fine. Unnecessarily hardware mods on the flip top there, but it works fine. It came with a bundle of games. A lot of those games I don't have anymore, but I have picked up some games in the meantime to replace the games I didn't really care about that came with the console. As it stands with PS2, I've got Mercenaries, Playground of Destruction, a really underrated and very, not many people talk about this one, a very great little kind of like mercenary army-esque kind of sandbox, kind of just destroy everything game. The destruction in this game is pretty great as well. I feel like as we've gotten further into video games, there's less kind of like destructive environments in games for some reason, but this is one of the best in my opinion. Dropping a nuke on a building and watching it just crumble is just satisfying as hell. That's Mercenaries. One of my favourite action RPGs ever, and that is Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. This game is just, I remember putting hours into this one. Absolutely adore it. Got this game for pretty cheap. I think it was about £4 in CX. Had to grab this one. It's not on the created collection list, but it's one of those games where if it's outside the list and I still want it, I'm going to grab it anyway. That's Dark Alliance. Another game that's gone under the radar, in my opinion, when it comes to Rockstar games, and that is The Warriors. It's a movie that I absolutely adore, and this game is absolutely fantastic. I'd argue it's probably better than the majority of the Grand Theft Auto titles, in my opinion. But yeah, that is The Warriors. I paid a bit more for this one in CX, £10 in CX, but it comes complete with a manual there. I wasn't that bothered about paying 10 quid. I did have a CX voucher, so I wasn't that bothered. But I've noticed as I'm getting into this collection, like brand new, fresh off the bat in 2023, there are titles that were dirt cheap 10 years ago that are getting up in price. And Warriors is one of those for definite. But it's definitely a game I had to have in the collection because it's fantastic. Speaking of Rockstar games, we have a Grand Theft Auto title. This came with the console in the part of the bundle. It's Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Arguably the best in the series, people would say. It's not my favourite. I still have a soft spot for Grand Theft Auto 3, which basically is the game that started it all, you could say, when it concerns sandbox 3D open world games. But this could be, in terms of mechanics and what they did to develop the franchise, probably the best in the series. Next up is a game that I don't expect to be good at all. This was part of the bundle. I thought this is going to be fun. I have somewhat a bit of nostalgia for this one, and that is Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. The movie sucks. I'm expecting the game to suck as well, but I remember having this when I was younger. I remember playing it. I remember actually somewhat enjoying it from what I remember. But nostalgia has a track record of basically making you believe something was good back in the day when it could be absolutely dreadful. And I've got a feeling Terminator 3 is going to be one of those terrible games that I used to play as a younger chap. Next up is an open world game a la Grand Theft Auto. I remember actually really liking this one, and that is The Godfather. This also came with the PS2 bundle. This game's getting a bit further up in price. I think it's about a £5 or £6 game in CX at the moment. So having this in the bundle without actually going out to get it was actually decent. So it's definitely a game I'm going to keep. I actually really like the sequel as well. Godfather 2 on the 360 is really good as well. So yeah, that's The Godfather. Next up is the Western game that came out before Red Dead was all the rage, and that is Gun. I remember absolutely rinsing this game as a kid, absolutely adoring it. I think I had the PS2 version. I think I went on to get the Xbox 360 version when I upgraded to an Xbox 360. But yeah, this game was a fun time. Excited to give it a replay as well. I haven't played any of these yet. I haven't had a chance to, but I'm really looking forward to giving this a replay. I might upgrade to the 360 version down the road again, but we'll see. That's Gun. Great Western game. Came out before Red Dead Redemption. But yeah, really fun. Next up is Gran Turismo 3. This is another just unbelievably nostalgic game to me. I adore this franchise. I remember putting, I don't know, hours and hours into this game, unlocking all the different cars, playing all the races, doing some of the endurance races where it's just like goes on forever. So much fun, so much love for cars in this. The attention to detail is amazing. This was at one point the showcase for PS2 at the day. I remember having this on PS2 and showing my friends going, you need to see how good this game looks. It looks unbelievable. And you know what? It holds up really well graphically. I think it looks fantastic to this day. I think PS2 has had this charm. PS2's got this charm that you can't really put your finger on, but there's something about PS2 graphics that I just feel have just aged quite nicely. They've got this smooth kind of texture look to them, and they just look nice. And Gran Turismo 3 is one of the best looking games on the console for me. Probably GT4 is a bit better, but for nostalgia's sake, GT3 is one of my favourite racing games ever. Speaking of favourite racing games ever, going on to my favourite wrestling game ever. And it's not the one you're thinking of, it's SmackDown versus Raw. I know people harp on about WWE SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. That is a great wrestling game, don't get me wrong. People talk about other wrestling games like WWF No Mercy, and etc, etc. But for me, when nostalgia lies in SmackDown versus Raw, I remember putting tons of hours into this one. I love it. I put this on the other day. It still holds up to me. Really holds up. I got the complete in box as well. Really happy about that with manual. But yeah, this game is just nostalgia. Just playing the opening cutscene to hype up the game was just all the nostalgia feels for me. Yeah, love it. It came out at the era where I really was into wrestling big time. I had a bit of a gap in wrestling. I've been watching it lately the last few years or so. Really gotten back into it again. But I love this game. It's still great to play now. It's great. Next up we have, some people would argue, the best Hitman game in the franchise. And that is Hitman Blood Money. This came with the bundle that I picked up as well for the PS2. Really happy to get this without going out to pick it up myself. Really happy to have it just as part of the bundle that I bought with the PS2. But yeah, Hitman Blood Money. You guys should know about the Hitman games by now. It's basically a murder simulator, lack of a better term. I love this one. I think it's fantastic. I think it's got the most entertaining set of missions in my opinion. But yeah, I thought this one is fantastic. I did like Absolution. However, I thought Absolution went more down a narrative route and more kind of kept the gameplay a bit more restricted. This was more kind of like choose your own kind of adventure. You know, choose your own way of murdering people in whatever fashion you want, whatever fashion you'd like. This game is great. Hitman 2 is really good. I felt Contracts was a bit iffy as a sequel, but Blood Money is where the franchise hit its peak for me. Finally, for the PS2 games, we have a game called Summoner. For some reason I remember actually having this and actually liking it, but on a replay, bear in mind this is like a £1 game. It's not. It's a very cheap game now. That's why I'm keeping it, because it's just no point kind of trade. It's got no trade value. But it's a dirt cheap game. I remember playing this years ago and loving it. Replaying this now, very recently, it's a very slow affair. If you do like your turn-based action RPGs, this still might tickle your fancy. But for me, I found it excruciatingly slow to really play. The combat is slow, the movement is slow, the exploration is slow. Everything is slow. It's like they've turned on slow motion in this game. It seems a bit too slow for me. But yeah, some of that is part of the collection regardless, and it still is somewhat a nostalgic game for me, so it's remaining in the collection. That's Summoner. we're going to move over to Xbox 360. I do have a few here that I'm happy to have in the collection. Some were donated by my brother. He's kind of downsizing his collection. He donated a few titles to me, which I'm happy about. So first off, we have the XCOM spin-off, The Bureau, XCOM Declassified. Not played this one yet, but I do like the slipcover on it. It's quite a nice little slipcover saying things are redacted and scribbled out. It's quite nice. From what I've noticed, this takes the XCOM formula and turns it into more of a kind of team-based third-person shooter with some kind of light tactic elements. It might be fun. I don't know, you guys let me know. The Bureau, XCOM Declassified. I'm a big XCOM fan, so this might be more of a lighter side of it. But yeah, looking forward to checking that one out. We have Mortal Kombat from 2011. Really like this one. I think it's pretty decent. Probably one of my favourites in the franchise. I've been playing it recently as well. It actually still holds up. It still feels fantastic to play. It's got tons of replay value, and the story is awesome as well. That's Mortal Kombat. I found this really nice limited slip-covered edition of Dragon Age Origins in the charity shop for 50p. Never underestimate your charity shops, guys, with video games. I swear you find some amazing stuff. Not very much a valuable game at all. Doesn't have much trading value, but I can't express how many hours I put into this one. One of my favourite action RPGs of all time. I adore this game. I probably can put it on now and have a great time. I'm sure it's dated to some degree. Some of the mechanics have dated a bit, but I just remember the story being great, and the choices you could make were just really impactful. And yeah, the gameplay was just fun as hell. That's Dragon Age. Speaking of westerns from before, we do have Red Dead Redemption. Again, this is complete in box. I like it that there's complete in box. But yeah, remember loving this game. I haven't played it recently. I know you can play it on Xbox One with like a 4K update and stuff like that. So maybe I'll play this again, but through backwards compatibility, and give it a go. We have got Injustice: Gods Among Us. I remember liking this game to a point, but I will say the sequel, Injustice 2, is infinitely superior to this one. I just like the fact that you can just be all the DC heroes and villains and just kick the shit out of each other. It's quite fun. But that's Injustice: Gods Among Us. I'm a massive Dragon Ball fan, if you can't tell. I've got Goku on the wall there. I've got Dragon Ball Z, Battle of Z. I've not played this one. I probably have, but I don't remember it at all. The only game that I remember from the 360 playing is Burst Limit, which is on my Xbox curated collection list. You'll see later on in the video. But yeah, that's Dragon Ball Z, Battle of Z. Next up, we have a fairly underrated game, action RPG, X-Men Destiny. I do believe this is from, yeah, Silicon Knights. I knew it was from those guys. Those guys there, Silicon Knights. I think this is their last game, if I remember correctly. They're famous for having the whole controversy with Too Human, which I actually think is not a terrible game. It's actually quite enjoyable. But I thought this was quite underrated and quite misjudged, in my opinion. I think it's quite fun. It can be really fun. You create your own mutant and you go around just kicking the shit out of things. And it's just a little fun action RPG. It's not bad. X-Men Destiny. One of the big hitters on the 360, the Metal Gear Solid HD Collection. I know this is going up in price at the moment, so I'm glad to have this in the collection. Metal Gear Solid 2 is okay. I don't think it's amazing. Metal Gear Solid 3 is much better in my opinion. But controversial opinion, I think Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker is one of the better Metal Gear games they've put out in recent years. Obviously it originated on the PSP and they've put it out in this HD collection. It's probably the best game in the collection in my opinion. But that is the Metal Gear Solid HD Collection. It's a big hitter for the 360, so I'm glad I got this one. Finally, on the 360 collection, I have Naruto Rise of a Ninja. Now, just to preface this, I have not watched a single episode of Naruto. I have no idea what this anime is about. This looks like a fun kind of open world action RPG. And you're this Naruto character, you're a ninja, so I'm up for playing this one. Maybe it might make me want to watch the show. So yeah, let's give that a go. That's Naruto Rise of a Ninja. And finally, I'm moving over to my current PS3 collection. It's only kind of like a modest collection for this one. I say modest. Some people would say this is overkill, but I've seen some amazing collections from amazing channels at the moment, and my collection is nothing compared to those. But to kick this PS3 collection off, I have Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City, a game I remember trying to rent when it came out originally and couldn't find it anywhere. Based on the critical reception, I'm glad that I didn't pay to play this one. However, in recent years, I've hunted this down. I've played it on the 360, and now I've got it on PS3. I think this is a underrated Resident Evil game. I think it's a game that it ticks all the boxes for the fans. Yeah, of course, it's not a survival horror per se, it's more of a third-person action game, but the amount of love and attention to the Resident Evil kind of universe in this game, it just gets a thumbs up for me. It's just so fun to play. I had a good time with it. I think this is an underrated game. I enjoyed it for what it was, but it's probably not going to be for everyone. But for a Resident Evil spin-off, I think it's pretty damn good. Next up we have The Chronicles of Riddick, Assault on Dark Athena. I'll be honest with you, I only got this because it's got a remastered version of Escape from Butcher Bay, which I think is one of the best games on the original Xbox. Absolutely fantastic. So having this as a HD remaster is definitely worth. It's worth the price alone for Chronicles of Riddick, Assault on Dark Athena. The Assault on Dark Athena game is pretty decent on its own, but I don't think it reaches the heights of that original game. But yeah, I had to have this in the collection because both games, you're getting 2 games for 1 here anyway, so it's definitely worth the price of admission right there. That's the Chronicles of Riddick. Next up we have the Resistance trilogy. I remember having these back in the day. I don't think I ever got around to playing Resistance 3, which is weird because I remember playing this and beating it, and I remember playing this and beating it. I've been playing this very recently. I started this a brand new game of this. It still really holds up as a early PS3 shooter. I think it really holds up. I think it's loads of fun to play, and I'm looking forward to finishing it and moving on to Resistance 2. But yeah, this was at the time a premium PS3 shooter series, and I feel like it might still be the premium series. I think I might prefer these over Killzone. But let me know, what do you guys prefer? The Killzone franchise or the Resistance franchise? Drop your answers in the comment. Next up is a must-have game for the PS3. It's been re-released numerous times at this point, and that is Naughty Dog's The Last of Us. I can't put into words how much I adore this game. The gameplay's perfect, the story is one of the greatest ever told in video games, the characters are lovable, and yeah, it's just amazing. It's an amazing survival horror narrative driven game that I think every game that wants to do story needs to take cues from. It's amazing, and the sequel is on par, if not better, in my opinion. I'm one of those people that actually really love the sequel. I know it got a lot of hate, but yeah, Last of Us Part 2 is pretty fun, pretty great as well, but the original is where I fell in love with these characters and this franchise. It's a must-have game for the PS3, but you've probably got it. You've probably got the PS4 version or you've got the PS5 version. Whatever version you own, it's a must-have game for me, and I had to own it in the PS3 collection. Next up we have a game that I never got to play when it came out, but it's a really cheap game now on PS3, and that is Heavy Rain. We're speaking about story in video games with The Last of Us. I think this is one of the best stories in video games, period. The journey through this story is remarkable. I think it's so engaging. There's a game that came out before this on PS2 called Fahrenheit, which had a similar kind of vibe where you do more kind of day-to-day stuff and you're trying to figure out a mystery of what's happening. This is very similar. It's got a similar vibe. I'm not sure, it might be made by the same person. Heavy Rain is a really fun, cinematic, story-driven experience that I think a lot of people should just check out. It's really cheap now on PS3, so it's definitely worth picking up. I think it was re-released on PS4 a few years ago as well, so that version exists if you want to get a more up-to-date version of it. But yeah, Heavy Rain is a great time. Next up we have a movie tie-in game which I think is super underrated, and I recommend any fans of survival horror to check this one out, because I think it is I just think it's really fun, and that is Saw, the video game. Say what you will about the Saw movies, I think Saw 1 and Saw 2 are fantastic. After that I think it just kind of falls off a hill and dies, but this video game is just such a great intertwining link to the movies. It's got really cool mechanics, the puzzles in it are fun to do, and when you've got to save these people in their traps, it's a nerve-wracking experience to try and save them before they get brutally murdered. Yeah, this is a fun one. I love it. I got the complete in box. There is a sequel to this, Saw 2, Flesh and Blood. That game's going for a bit silly money now, but that game is not good at all. So that silly money will not be coming out of my wallet for that one. But this game is definitely worth the price of admission. I think I paid about 8 or 10 quid for it. Definitely worthwhile. It's a fun game that I think more people should check out if you're into survival horror. And if you're into the Saw movies, this game is definitely worth checking out. So I got a James Bond game as well, that is Bloodstone. Not played this yet. This is a recent pickup for me. I've been watching a channel all about Bond lately. I've not really delved into the films that much, but I've got the box set, so I want to check out the films at some point. So it's got me into like, maybe I should chuck in some games there. More the modern ones anyway, because I grew up with, like, you know, GoldenEye and World Is Not Enough and Tomorrow Never Dies, those games. But never played any of the modern ones, so I've heard this one's a really good one with Daniel Craig as Bond. So looking forward to checking this one out. That's 007 Bloodstone. So the final game on my PS3 list is Final Fantasy 13. Now this is where things get weird. I got 2 copies of Final Fantasy 13, PAL version, the European version, but I've also got the Japanese disc as well. This is what basically happened. I bought a Japanese copy thinking that Japanese copies might have an English option. I was dead wrong, they don't. But I like this artwork more than the UK artwork for Final Fantasy 13. So I went and bought a really cheap copy of Final Fantasy 13 from CX. I think it's like £1 game now, it's really cheap. And then I just basically put the UK manual in there. Oh, it's a Japanese, oh, well, ignore me. So I put the UK disc in there, kept the Japanese disc and the manual. So now I've got the UK game in the case with the better artwork. But yeah, that's Final Fantasy 13. I love that artwork though. It's more classic Final Fantasy. It's like Final Fantasy 7 and 8 and 9. It's got that more kind of simple, minimal kind of logo to it. So I'm a sucker for artwork, guys. I love that though, that's awesome. That's Final Fantasy 13. So that's it, guys. Let me know what you think down in the comments below about my current collection as it stands for PS2, PS3 and the Xbox 360. I do have an Xbox One collection, but it's very minimal. Now I do not really want to focus on Xbox One on this channel just yet. I'm going to slowly get into other consoles down the line. Let me know about awesome games you recommend for my collections, and I will see you in the next video. See you later.